Celebrating 46 years on the air, award-winning Farmweek is a production of Mississippi State University Extension.
Today on Farm Week, an encore special report focused on isolation and stress on the farm. In Southern Gardening, a fun little story, what to do during a gardening rain delay. Then back to our special report, plenty of stress on the farm, but in its conclusion, there's a glimmer of hope. And in our final feature, the fate of cannabis and CBD in view of the coming new Farm Bill. Farm Week starts right now.
Hello everyone, I'm Zach Ashmore.
And I'm Mike Russell. Thanks for joining us again here on Farm Week for a feature edition of the show. This week, as we edge closer to the end of the year, we continue our theme of mental health on the farm and begin a series, an encore series, focusing on stress and isolation in agriculture. In part one, we meet Nathan Casburn of Sumner, Mississippi. His story is all too familiar and made possible through the extraordinary efforts of producer James Parker and MSU Films.
We are in the Mississippi Delta, specifically Sumner. The farm is roughly 1,500 acres, give or take. This year we're primarily soybeans. Been a family farm since early 1900s. Family house. My dad and I work together. As of this year, it is just the two of us.
How do two people possibly work 1,500 acres?
Slowly, difficultly, and painstakingly. We get it done though. This is not what I want to be doing. But it wouldn't be a normal day on a farm if you didn't have an unexpected fire to have to put out. That's just the name of the game.
Farming's a very tough life. You know, you have a lot of risks that you have going in, and people don't think about that. You know, people don't think about how one storm can completely wipe your crop out and, you know, put you back to square one, and really, you know, no fault of your own.
I think a lot of people think that it's just easy. You just put stuff in the ground and then just go count your money in the fall. They see a lot of numbers that people like to spout off statistics, but you don't see all the overhead behind it and everything like that. You don't see the work that goes into it. You don't see 10, 12 hours in the sun. You know, you don't see stuff constantly breaking down that's out of your control. And then part suppliers being out of control, COVID coming in, a global pandemic coming in and shutting down supply lines of parts and making parts availability impossible. At the end of the day, there's never enough hours in the day to do what you want to do. But you just do what you can and wake up the next day and start over. It can be extremely stressful. It's really not what I expected to be part of my life forever. I didn't intend to farm. I kind of felt like I didn't belong and I didn't want to be here. but things don't always work out like we planned. 2004, I was a junior in high school, and I had been drinking. You know, a lot of folks around here start drinking early. The Delta's a drinking culture, it just is. We had a car wreck. My girlfriend at the time was driving on a back road. She was pretty badly injured. I wasn't as badly injured, but I still broke my back in a couple spots, and I was given a couple prescriptions of painkillers. I remember sitting in the chair. There's a recliner at the house, and I felt like I was floating. And I was like, this is the greatest feeling ever. I want this to last forever. And I was gonna do whatever I could to make that last forever.
Usually it starts where people are using for a reason other than the original intended consequence. And with that, that's where you can easily have it spiral out of control, because then it starts becoming that coping mechanism. And the more you do that, the more you rely on any substance for your coping, the less able you're going to be able to naturally cope. And so it's really a catch-22.
If they were cheap, $20 would get you whatever you wanted, you know, and that's, I realized that I could just go spend $100 and be good for the week. But then that $100 is only good for 3 days. Then it's only good for 1 day. Then you make that jump to heroin. It just escalates, and it's out of your control whether or not you realize it. You keep trying to keep that control over it, keep that grasp on it, but you can't.
A heartbreaking story, but Nathan Casburn's journey is one that led to a better ending than most. We'll have the conclusion of that story for you shortly.
In Southern Gardening this week, a look back a couple of years with former host Gary Bachman, who retired at the end of the year. One of his favorite stories. What do you do when the weather gets in the way? And let's be clear about this, it often does get in the way of both the gardener and our camera crews when we're filming the segment. Here's Gary.
Just like every gardener in the South, the crew of Southern Gardening also has to deal with the rain. So what do I do when I can't get in the garden because of the rain? I think about the plants I could be planting. Let's take a look at a few. Garden planting doesn't have to be hard. I like to use the same thriller, filler, and spiller container recipe for my landscape. Let me show you. Spiller plants are those ground cover types. Here are a couple great suggestions. Purslane is one of these plants that are perfect and forms a dense mat of drought-resistant color. And ornamental sweet potatoes are perfect for laying a gorgeous carpet of vivid and attractive leaves. These plants are vigorous and produce thick mats of color. Yep, it's still raining. Filler plants add body to the landscape planting. Colocaceae certainly fit the description of a filler plant. The leaves are huge with coarse texture and do fill in any open spaces in the landscape. And the coarse foliage of caladiums will fill any lower area with color. A wide variety can offer an explosion of colorful foliage. I'm always thrilled with the varieties of cutting zinnia. These are big plants that add excitement. With the range of colors including white, pink, yellow, and purples, these are perfect for cutting to be enjoyed indoors. And to put a positive spin on a gardening rain delay, it gives you time for Garden Planning 101. Oops, time to go. I'm horticulturist Gary Bachman. I hope you'll see me next time on Southern Gardening.
We'll take a break right here, but don't go away. Coming up in our Farm Week feature, while the Farm Bill continues to take shape, the last one's impact on cannabis and hemp still unsettled. In 2018, Congress legalized hemp, marijuana's cousin, and farmers had a field day. But ever since, ambiguous language in the law gave rise to CBD products, many of them for medicinal use. Still, as we approach a new farm bill, many are worried we'll have 50 different states with 50 different laws. What's the fate of cannabis? Coming up on Farm Week. Don't go away.
I believe in people and their hopes, their aspirations and their faith, and their right to make their own plans and arrive at their own decisions, and their ability and power to enlarge their lives and plan for the happiness of those they love. I believe that education, of which extension work is an essential part, is basic in stimulating individual initiative, self-determination, and leadership, that these are the keys to democracy, and that people, when given facts they understand, will act not only in their self-interest, but also in the interest of society. Because I believe these things, I am an extension professional.
I believe in people and their hopes, their aspirations, and their faith. I believe in intellectual freedom to search for and present the truth without bias and with courteous tolerance toward the views of others. I believe that education is a lifelong process and the greatest university is the home, that my success as a teacher is proportional to those qualities of mind and spirit that give me welcome entrance to the homes of the families I serve. Because I believe these things, I am an extension professional.
And now the conclusion of Nathan Casburn's story. A farmer in Sumner, Mississippi. An injury led to his dependence on drugs. For many, it would be the start of a downward spiral. But Nathan had an epiphany and finally found a path toward recovery.
I would show up work hungover. I would show up withdrawing. Well, I don't ever think I knew that I was withdrawing at the time, but I would show up. One thing I would do is I would show up no matter how miserable I felt. I'd be 2 hours of sleep, hungover, but I would still be at work. And I would use that as an incentive. If I work a few hours, you know, I can start drinking, or I got this coming in at this time and I can go ahead and do this and I'll be better. It wasn't for years that it got to the point that it was causing me issues with work, which that came, but for years it didn't.
Withdrawal symptoms are almost always the exact opposite of whatever the drug does. So something that makes you feel happy and good will actually make you feel sad and depressed coming off of it. And the way to take those away is to take more of the substance. So as people go on, you actually start using the substance just to feel normal. You know, not even to feel better, just to feel normal.
I'm overdosing at least once a day, and I teach a buddy of mine how to do CPR because it's gotten to that point. What I'm doing, I've isolated myself so much that it's just me and the drugs, and it's the point where I'm either gonna get clean or I'm gonna die. I kind of have a, I don't know if you call it existential moment, but it was kind of an out-of-body moment where I sucked out of my own system and I was able to kind of see everything for the truth of how it is. I was stuck in this pattern. Get high, sit on the couch. And I physically couldn't go beyond that. I was supposed to have been at work and I couldn't do anything about it. And I wasn't even enjoying it. No matter how much I didn't want to do it, I couldn't stop myself from doing it. And I just had this moment where I saw, I just saw it for how it was. I just saw that I was going through this same thing and I was stuck. I was never gonna move beyond where I was currently. I wasn't gonna go anywhere. Everyone else around me was moving on, and I was going to be right here, and for how long I was going to be right there, I didn't know. It was a very sudden this is how life is, and it's not going to get any better unless you do something about it moment.
Once you hit that moment, and once you really get to that spot where you're open to change, where you realize that there has to be change, that's a life-changing moment. It's that fork in the road where it's forcing you to make a choice, and you realize that status quo only leads one place, and you have to decide if that's where you want to go or not. Are you going to the grave, or are you going to build up and get out of this?
I cut my phone off and I left it at the house because I knew that if I had my phone with me, I was gonna call somebody to bring me something or go get something. I finished out the workday and dove headfirst into recovery, and that was late October 2016, and that's what I've been doing ever since. Afterwards, what it looked like for me is working on relationships with people I work with, which include family, my dad and I. We've gotten a lot closer because our relationship, we hardly had a relationship. If I'd been him, I would have fired me and run me off, and I would have deserved every bit of it because I was extremely hard to be around, extremely hard to deal with, but he never did. And I appreciate that, and I've appreciated the last couple years because I've been present for it. It's been really good for work and everything else because it's allowed me to learn so much and to grow in my knowledge of farm work and be able to become a better farmer. Take over a lot of the responsibility that I've been able to and actually step up and do what I'm supposed to do. You know what I mean? This year in particular has been probably the hardest year of my life, but it's also been the most rewarding year of my life. I've accomplished a lot, but you have to work at that, and it doesn't come overnight. It's been a process over the last 3.5 years.
It's, may have been bad choices, may have been bad circumstances, but however you got there, in a way it doesn't matter. It's about what you do going forward. And ultimately, that's how we leave our mark on the world, right? It's what we do. It's not really even where we've been. Sometimes actually the greatest stories start from the worst places.
Well, beforehand, it was just a job. There was something that I had to do because I had to have money and to support my habit, and if I didn't show up, then I got fired. That was as invested in it as I ever was. I never really looked at it for what it was. I wasn't capable of looking at it for what it was. And now it's a lifestyle as well as a profession. It's not a job. The biggest hurdle is being able to say, I can't do this on my own, and I need help with this. And that is the most terrifying, difficult thing to do. But once you get past that and you realize it's not so hard to do, then a lot of other stuff is doable. And once you've made that transition, you can pretty much do anything, including getting clean, staying that way.
Very important. If you or someone you know is in emotional crisis, call or text 988 anytime for confidential, free crisis support. Since the passage of the last farm bill, we've reported regularly on the way hemp, marijuana's cousin, has been handled around the country. That's when it was essentially legalized at the federal level. Now, as the next farm bill looms, hemp and its various derivatives, one in particular, are under the microscope. Josh Bittner has more.
As new 5-year agricultural legislation looms over a divided Congress, some find themselves caught in the crossfire between opportunity and legal oversight.
The injunction is great. What I worry about is the renewal of the Farm Bill.
Mike Kimsey owns and operates Discount Smokes in Bullitt County, Kentucky. His store on the outskirts of the Louisville metro area was raided by state police in 2021 for carrying Delta-8 THC products, a hemp derivative. Hemp was federally legalized in 2018.
They scared all my employees, made them all come up front and read them their rights like we were all going to jail, basically, and for selling a legal product.
Thousands of dollars in merchandise were seized from stores and held for months before a Boone County, Kentucky Circuit Court declared the product legal, issuing a permanent injunction against law enforcement in 2022.
So retailers weren't aware of the letter, but law enforcement and license holders were.
Katie Moyer is president of the Kentucky Hemp Association. An April 2021 letter from the Kentucky Department of Agriculture to hemp farmers and processors declaring Delta-8 an illegal synthetic drug spurred her to join retailers and industry representatives in a successful lawsuit against the state.
And I saw what it did for my husband, and it kept him from seizing. No one could change my mind after that.
Dee Dee Taylor runs 502 Hemp in Louisville and helped push back in court. Once skeptical of Delta-8, last year she was appointed by Governor Andy Beshear to Kentucky's Medical Cannabis Advisory Committee. She helped defeat a state-level Delta-8 ban last session, leading to passage of an adult-use regulatory framework by the State General Assembly in 2023.
The one that told me that they knew they were going to lose because if it was already illegal, we wouldn't need a bill for it, right?
Delta-8 proliferated due to a combination of ambiguity found in the 2018 Farm Bill, which legalized hemp cultivation for the first time since World War II, and a subsequent surplus of cannabidiol, or CBD, an abundant non-intoxicating cannabinoid. Though hemp advocates champion the crop's potential food, fiber, and fuel markets, CBD-derived products dominate today's landscape.
I'm concerned whether we have enough money to beat the lobbyists in that. Because for all the health benefits that are out there, it's a detriment to the healthcare industry because they lose all that revenue.
Hemp and marijuana are both the same plant, Cannabis sativa L, each defined by the amount of the well-known psychoactive Delta-9 THC found within. In 2018, Congress zeroed in on Delta-9 and capped it for hemp at just 0.3%. But lawmakers did not address up to 100 other naturally occurring cannabinoids, creating a market for entrepreneurs.
I like to think that our politicians know what they're doing when they make law.
Justin Journay is founder and CEO of 3Chi, an industry leader in minor cannabinoid research. A biochemist by trade, Journay discovered CBD while seeking an alternative remedy for shoulder pain. Intrigued, he pioneered a new way to make Delta-8 out of CBD. 3Chi took off in 2019, offers cannabinoid vapes, edibles, and drinks, and is constantly expanding operations in the Indianapolis, Indiana area to keep up with demand.
The real advantage of Delta-8 is that it isn't as intoxicating. It's more clear-headed, more functional, and so when you get into why do people use cannabis, whether that's hemp or marijuana in general, a lot of times it's medicinal.
Cannabis products have been touted for relief from a range of illnesses, but marijuana is subject to more state taxes, licensing, and other fees, often pitting the same plant against itself for market dollars. A federal court upheld the so-called Farm Bill loophole last year, but many states have gone on to interpret Delta-8 in their own ways. Critics bemoan the lack of mandated third-party testing and peer-reviewed studies, saying chemicals and solvents used by some processors could unleash unknown byproducts unsafe for consumption, especially for children. Counterfeit product also is a safety concern. 3Chi says their own safety protocols exceed industry standards.
A lot of these cannabinoids are very similar in their structure, and the plant actually will take CBGA and turn that enzymatically into these different cannabinoids that are expressed, in the final version of the plant. Really what we're doing is something similar, just in a lab setting. What we personally strive for is purity of Delta-8 at the end of the day.
Early this year, the Federal Drug Enforcement Administration clarified its view that synthetically obtained Delta-8 and Delta-9 THC are illegal controlled substances. In a statement last year following the Boone County injunction, the Kentucky Department of Agriculture said it would not take disciplinary action against Delta-8 producers, but didn't rule out reevaluation under any future change in law. Products remain on store shelves.
We've got a lot of great innovators, a lot of great thinkers.
Hoosier State Delta 8 proponents say Indiana's market climate after the last Farm Bill created favorable conditions for nascent businesses.
All that stuff matters in terms of what kind of policy we get.
Indianapolis attorney Justin Swanson lobbies state lawmakers on behalf of the hemp trade.
I think Indiana has a unique opportunity being kind of an ag powerhouse in the country, also a logistics powerhouse. You know, we're primed to really, I think, supply the country and be a net exporter of these products.
As local governments are courted by hemp influencers, Congress molds the crop's interpretation under the next Farm Bill. Advocates say, short of full national cannabis legalization, state examples could help guide Congress, but warn of over-regulation.
We're going to have 50 different cannabis laws in 50 different states, and then we're going to have to kind of piecemeal everything together. But ultimately, best case scenario would be the government just minds its own business.
People and politicians on every side of that issue. Well, next time, genetic diversity in livestock. Many say it's necessary, but producers look for certain qualities. Is there a trade-off?
That's a question many are asking. We look deeper using Holstein dairy breeding as a guide. Two Penn State researchers say that virtually all of modern-day bulls are descended from two in the 1880s. That brings up inbreeding versus the sizable money made from the line over the years.
Genetic diversity, is it worth it? Next time on Farm Week.
Remember, if you missed a story, look for past episodes of Farm Week on our website at farmweek.tv.
And don't forget to follow us on Facebook and YouTube. We'll see you next week. Thanks for watching.